Hey, how are you? Welcome to Poker Strategy with Kimock7, K-M-O-C-K-7. I'm excited about this video. I haven't made a video in a while. This is leading up to what I hope to be an entry into a main event with the Mid-Stakes Poker Tour, which is in a Midwest poker tour. MidStakesPokerTour.com. Check them out, MSP.com. They run fairly big tournaments throughout the Midwest throughout the year. I've been trying to get in a main event up at Potawatomi, up in Milwaukee, throughout this year. I actually got a main event ticket back in March or February, but I had to sell it because I had won a trip to, Los Cabos, not a bad place to go. But I entered these satellites to try and get in the main event, which is an $1,100 ticket to get in. But don't stop this video yet, because I'm going to talk about my strategy, how I won this satellite ticket the other day. There's the ticket. So what you're going to learn in this video is playing the small stack, patience, emotional control, and table image. We're going to cover all of that in about 10 minutes. I'm going to talk fast and swift. I got some great things to talk about here, and I'm excited to make this video. So where do we start? The main event is about 3 weeks, and they have $65 satellite tournaments where the top 20% get a satellite ticket into the $250 tournament. And in that $250 tournament, the top 20% of that will win a ticket to the main event, which is $1,100 value. Or you can win 4 of these and you can exchange them for an $1,100 ticket into the main event. What's the main event? It's a $300,000 guaranteed prize pool that usually balloons over $400,000 to $500,000 or $600,000. So the other day there was about 70 players, and I sat down at the table. I've been wearing my sunglasses lately, which are reflective, fairly large sunglasses. No hat, no hoodie, just a nice jacket, so I'm really nice and warm. I have some water, no alcohol, extremely focused, extremely determined. I have one goal at that table, which is to get one of these. There's 12 getting these out of 70 players. So number one, while the blinds are low, I am playing aggressive. No matter what I have, if it folds around to me, I am raising. No matter what I have, if people are flat calling around to me and I have a fairly premium starting hand, doesn't have to be a pair, I'm going to raise. I want to be the aggressor at the table. I want to take a stand. Either if there's one other guy, I want to be the only guy or one of 2 guys at the table that is doing some pot control, doing some bet sizing control. And that's a bit what's going on there when you see other players do that. They're not just betting out because they want to bet out and get people off their hands. They're also doing that for pot sizing control, for betting control. For instance, if it folds around to me and the blinds are 100 and 200 and I'm sitting there with, 8-7 offsuit, I'm going to raise. And I'm going to do the pot control of that. I'm going to do the raising control of that. So I know I get a pretty good feel that, so if I bet out 300, then anyone's going to bet behind me is only going to probably bet out 300. That way, I don't stand to lose too much. Whereas if I just flat called 100 and suddenly this guy next to me bets 600, and one of my choices there, I either have to fold or I call his additional $500 or I re-raise. I only have a few choices there. Whereas if I'm the aggressor and I bet out 300, then typically nobody's going to re-raise that. Assuming you are in middle to late position. And this video and all my other videos, you got to take into account position at the table. Every friggin' time you get a hand, I want you to look up and say to yourself, am I in early position, middle position, or late position? Once you determine those 3 things, then you can start to decide what your strategy is based upon who the activity is before it comes to you, before the betting round comes to you. If you're in an early position, obviously you got to be very, 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 very careful. You don't want to get involved unless you have a fairly decent premium hand. Yeah, you can flat call with pocket 9s, and I'll talk about how I did that and successfully later in this video. In fact, let's go right to that. I was in early position, middle of this tournament, and I woke up with pocket 9s. Middle to late part of the tournament. And, I'm the first to act. So I thought to myself, you know what? I'm just going to flat call. Let's go flat call. I want to see what everyone else does. Okay? The guy right next to me goes all in. Very interesting, because he had me covered in chips. Everyone else folds, comes back around to me. I looked at him. He didn't give up much to read, and I called his all in. He had king queen. I beat him with my pocket nines. Short story right there. Short story. Whereas if I would have raised in that position, that guy maybe would not have shoved. You know, maybe he would have said to himself, I'm going to wait for a better opportunity because this guy's raising. But he sees that I flat called there. He perceives me as being weak, and he just shoves all in, you know, with all these players left to act. The other part about this video that I want to really drive home is aggression in those early stages. So getting back to what I did successfully there, I'm sitting there at the table with my sunglasses on, giving off an extremely determined, robotic impression of table image that I am very serious. I'm here to do business. I'm not here to socialize, and I ain't screwing around. I have one goal in mind, which is to get a satellite ticket. That's why I'm here. There's no other goal. So anyone else that's kind of screwing around, him and her hawing, or just kind of playing for fun, you know, when they get up to me, I want them to know when they get in a pot hand with me, as they get to know me at the table, that they know they're going up against a serious player. They know they're going up to somebody that appears to know what he's doing. You know, they don't know who I am, generally speaking. And this worked to my advantage in two different hands. And this is where we get into talk about bluffing. People are doing minimal raises to me, and I got Jack 10 offsuit. Well, the board's running out. A 4 appears on the board, and then a 5. You know, it's a very dry board, and then a queen. You know, it's like, it's a rainbow board. Well, I see so many people checking around, and one woman, she did a nominal bet. I called it because I'm looking to pair up my Jack or my 10. And suddenly an ace appears on the river. And I looked up at her, and I gave her quite the stare, and I bet out an aggressive bet. And she folded. It's a great example of, you know, she seemed to fear me. She seemed to, you know, she didn't connect with the board. She assumes I connected with the board with the queen or ace. You know, you got to often play the board and not your hand. You got to often play the other player and not your hand. This took me years to realize. This took me years to learn. And I'm finally consistently being able to apply this knowledge at the table. It's taken me quite a lot of time. But with each new experience, with each success, it builds upon the previous experience. It becomes this massive theory of knowledge, of experience. And every time you go to the table thereafter, you have all that in your brain. You know, you're firing on all cylinders. You are so in the zone. You know, I had texted my brother the next day. I was explaining to him how I feel like I'm in the zone. I hit 4 final tables last week. 4 final tables. I finished a 3rd place in one tournament. Finished 4th place in another tournament. Online, I hit an 8th place for a nice score. And then the other day, I got this ticket. In that case, it was a top 12 player, so they stopped the tournament when it was the final 12. But I must have been 4th or 5th in chips. So let me cover a couple other hands. I've talked about bluffing. Another bluff that I had very successfully, I entered the pot with 7-4 suited. And the board was running out nothing attractive for anybody that had face cards. The board was like 2, 2, and then a 3. Then a 5 came out. And again, I'm sitting there with a 4 and a 7. So I've got, you know, some options there. But I could just tell by the body language and the betting patterns of my villain that she had face cards. Or he had face cards. He was sitting next to me. I could just tell. You know, you start to get in this zone. So what did I do? And I could see he's not getting any face cards on the board. Started raising him. Raising. Playing aggressive. What does he do? He folds. And just to drive it home to him that don't mess with me, I showed him my 7-4 offsuit that I bluffed. Just bluffed him off the hand. I won 4,000 to 5,000 of chips just off that bluff hand with the 7-4 suited. But here's where this video takes kind of a turn. I went card dead for about an hour. Suddenly there was only 20 players left. The top 12 were getting a satellite ticket. And out of those 20, guess who was short stacked all of a sudden? Because I was card dead for a good 45 minutes. Me. I was down to 13,000 in chips. So what do? You have two options. You start to shove, kind of lighter hands. You're down to like 7, 8 big blinds, which is where I was at. But I waited patiently. I waited. I folded ace-6. I folded ace-deuce. I waited and waited and waited. I didn't want to start shoving an ace-6. I didn't want to shove an ace-deuce. Suddenly I woke up with ace-queen of spades. And I was in middle position. And I shoved. Another player shoved and another player shoved. One player had king-queen. The other had pocket kings, which obviously had me very worried. I stood up. I'm like, I'm out. I gave it my best shot. And the board ran out. Nothing exciting until it got to the river. And there was an ace on the river. And I tripled up. Tripled up. So suddenly my 13,000 in chips, I suddenly had 39,000 in chips. So you never ever know what's going to happen in these tournaments. You know, you have to be patient. A couple hands later, I woke up with pocket kings myself. Slow played them. A queen appeared on the board. Watched this guy shove. I shoved and took him down, took all his chips. So to summarize this video, be patient. God, if there's one thing I can drive home, and it's a repeated sentence from my other videos, don't be afraid to blind out of a tournament. Don't start to freak out. I don't care what you've learned with other videos. Don't start to freak out when you're 10 big blinds. Don't start to freak out when you're 9, 8, 7 big blinds. There may be an opportunity to come right in your hand suddenly when you're 6, 5 big blinds where you can double up. And if you can double up and you double up, you're right back in the game. You're right back in the game. In the beginning of the tournament, I want you to be aggressive when those big blinds are low. Get yourself a nice chip stack. Maybe double what the starting stack was. So if you're starting with 10,000 at a deep stack, play real aggressive until you got 20,000 in chips. And then maybe go back to a really tight mode. Or maybe it's 15,000 in chips, whatever you prefer. I've done that very specific thing successfully over the past 2 weeks. Coming out of the gates, bam, I'm going to be the aggressor. I'm going to build that chip stack and then woof, completely adjust my play, become less predictable. And that whole entire time, I've got my glasses on and I'm playing robotic so nobody can get a read. I never break a smile, I never break a frown, just robotic. All right. Put a lot of excitement in this video. I hope you've enjoyed it. If you have, please like, please share, please subscribe. This has been Kimok7 with Poker Strategy. We're trying to get to the main event. It's happening in 3 weeks. We got ourselves a satellite ticket that we're going to try to turn into a much bigger seat into the main event. This has been Kimok7 with Poker Strategy. Good luck grinding on the tables, and a shout out to grips.com.